My name is Ryan Mitchell, 32, and last month I was promoted to development director after 7 years grinding at my software company. I reserved a table for 6 at the Harrington, Boston's finest restaurant, to celebrate with my family. As I sat there alone for 45 minutes, checking my phone repeatedly, my heart sank reading my mother's text. "You're not exactly a priority right now." Before I continue this story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and subscribe to see how this family drama unfolds. Trust me, you'll want to see what happened next. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I learned early that my position in our family hierarchy was permanently fixed at second place. My younger brother Mason, now 27, captured our parents' hearts and attention from the moment he arrived 5 years after me. While I was the quiet, studious type who preferred books and computers, Mason was athletic, naturally charming, and socially magnetic. Our parents, Gerald and Patricia Mitchell, never tried to hide their preference. "Mason scored 2 goals at his soccer game today," Dad would announce at dinner, beaming with pride, while my perfect math test sat unmentioned in my backpack. "We need to leave Ryan's science fair early," Mom would explain apologetically to my teacher. "Mason has a baseball tournament across town and we can't miss it." This pattern continued throughout our childhood. When I was selected for the state math competition in 8th grade, my parents sent me with my friend's family because Mason had a regional Little League game the same weekend. Their absence during my academic achievements became so predictable that by high school, I stopped telling them about awards or recognition. College applications presented another stark contrast in our family dynamic. Despite my 4.0 GPA and extracurricular activities, my parents seemed distracted during conversations about my future. "Harvard is pretty expensive," Dad commented when I mentioned my acceptance. "Have you considered state instead? We need to think about saving for Mason's college fund too." I ended up at Boston University with partial scholarships, working 3 part-time jobs to cover the rest. Meanwhile, when Mason graduated high school 2 years later with a 2.8 GPA and marginal extracurriculars, our parents took out substantial loans to send him to his dream school in California. He dropped out after 3 semesters. After graduation, I landed a job at TechCore Solutions, a prestigious software development company in downtown Boston. Starting as a junior developer, I quickly established myself as dependable and innovative. Meanwhile, Mason bounced between various jobs, never staying more than 6 months at any position. When he returned to Massachusetts after his college adventure ended, our parents welcomed him home with open arms. "He just hasn't found his calling yet," Mom would explain to family friends, while in the same conversation mentioning my career as merely, "Ryan's doing fine with his computer job." The real turning point in our family dynamic came in early 2020. The economic downturn hit my parents hard. Dad's construction business faced cancellations and delays, while Mom's part-time job at a local retail store ended with the store's closure. At 29, I was building my career and saving for my own home when I received a panicked call from my mother. "We're 3 months behind on the mortgage," she admitted, her voice breaking. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. We just don't know what to do, Ryan." I drove to their house that evening and found them at the kitchen table, surrounded by overdue bills and mortgage notices. Dad looked defeated, his normally confident demeanor replaced by slumped shoulders and a downward gaze. Mason was nowhere to be seen, apparently out with friends despite the family crisis. "We need about $6,000 to catch up," Dad explained, pushing the mortgage statement toward me. "Then we can try to refinance." The monthly payment was $1,980, and looking at their financial situation, I knew this wasn't a one-time fix. Without steady intervention, they would lose the home I grew up in. "I can cover it," I said after a long pause. "Not just the back payments, but going forward until you're back on your feet." The relief on their faces was immediate and profound. Mom burst into tears, coming around the table to hug me tightly. "We'll pay you back every penny," Dad promised, his voice firm with renewed determination. "This is just temporary until business picks up again. You're saving our home." Mom whispered. We'll never forget this. I set up automatic transfers for the mortgage payment each month, which meant tightening my own budget significantly. The apartment I rented would remain my home instead of purchasing my own place. Vacations became staycations, eating out became a rare luxury, and my savings goals were put on indefinite hold. As months stretched into years, the temporary arrangement became permanent. Dad's business recovered somewhat but never returned to its pre-2020 levels. Mom found part-time work but nothing that contributed significantly to household expenses. And Mason continued living at home, occasionally working but spending more than he earned, his contributions to household expenses minimal at best. 3 years passed this way. 36 monthly payments of $1,980 transferred from my account to cover my parents' mortgage. $71,280 in total. During this time, acknowledgement of my sacrifice gradually diminished. What began with profound gratitude evolved into casual expectations. The monthly transfer became invisible, an assumed contribution that warranted no special recognition. Throughout these years, I continued building my career at TechCore. Late nights, weekend work, and relentless skill development eventually positioned me for a significant promotion. When the development director position opened, I had established myself as the natural candidate. After 3 rounds of interviews and a comprehensive project proposal, I received the news I'd been working toward for 7 years. Congratulations, Ryan, my boss said, extending his hand across the desk. The director position is yours. You've earned this. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase, expanded responsibilities leading a team of 15 developers, and a level of professional recognition I had worked incredibly hard to achieve. For once, I wanted my family to acknowledge my success, to celebrate this milestone that represented countless hours of dedication. I wanted them to be proud of me, just once, the way they had always been proud of Mason. That evening, I called my parents to share the news. That's nice, honey, Mom said, her attention clearly divided. Oh, Mason just walked in with some exciting news of his own. Do you want to talk to him? I declined, but decided that rather than letting this achievement go unrecognized like so many others, I would organize a proper celebration. The next day, I made a reservation at the Harrington, Boston's most exclusive restaurant, booking a private dining room for 6 people. I invited my parents, Mason, my Aunt Susan, and my cousin Lindsay. Everyone confirmed they would attend. The day of the dinner, I received congratulatory messages from colleagues and friends. My team at work presented me with a card signed by everyone in the department. My boss stopped by my new office to reiterate his confidence in my leadership. But the celebration I was most looking forward to was dinner with my family. Looking forward to tonight. I texted the family group chat that morning. Wouldn't miss it, replied Aunt Susan. See you there, Mom texted back. With everyone's attendance confirmed, I looked forward to an evening of recognition and celebration. After years of supporting my family financially and having my achievements overlooked in favor of Mason's more trivial accomplishments, I finally felt this promotion was significant enough to warrant their undivided attention and genuine pride. Little did I know how wrong I was. The Harrington restaurant occupies the top floor of a renovated historical building in downtown Boston, offering panoramic views of the city skyline. I had passed by it countless times but never ventured inside, deterred by both the exclusive reputation and the premium prices. But my promotion seemed worthy of something special, a departure from my usually frugal lifestyle. I made the reservation 2 weeks in advance, specifically requesting a corner table in the private dining section that would accommodate 6 people comfortably. The maitre d' had been explicit about their cancellation policy when I provided my credit card to secure the reservation. A minimum charge would apply regardless of attendance. On the evening of the dinner, I left work early to go home and change into my best suit, a charcoal gray Tom Ford I had purchased for special client meetings but rarely had occasion to wear. I even splurged on a professional haircut that afternoon and bought a new tie for the occasion. Looking in the mirror before leaving my apartment, I barely recognized the confident professional staring back at me, so different from the overlooked son I still felt like around my family. I arrived 20 minutes early, wanting to ensure everything was perfect. The maitre d', a slender man with impeccable posture named Gilbert, greeted me by name and led me to the reserved table. "Congratulations on your promotion, Mr. Mitchell," he said, pulling out my chair. "We've prepared everything as requested. Your guests should be arriving shortly." The table was immaculate, with crisp white linens, polished silverware, and crystal glasses catching the light from the chandeliers overhead. A small card reading, "Congratulations," was propped against the centerpiece of fresh flowers. I ordered a bottle of champagne to be chilled and ready when everyone arrived. At 7:00 p.m., the reservation time, I sat alone at the table for 6, occasionally checking my phone for messages. By 7:15, with no sign of my family, I sent a group text. "At the restaurant, everything okay?" My Aunt Susan replied immediately. "Running a bit late. Traffic is terrible." Relief washed over me. Just traffic. Nothing to worry about. By 7:30, I had declined the server's offer to pour the champagne 3 times, explaining that I was waiting for my guests. Other diners in the restaurant were starting to give me pitying glances as they walked past my conspicuously empty table. At 7:45, I called my mother. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried my father next, with the same result. Then Mason, Aunt Susan, and Cousin Lindsay. No answers. By 8 p.m., I had been sitting alone at the table for an hour. The server approached again, his expression sympathetic. "Sir, would you like to order some appetizers while you wait?" I nodded, ordering calamari and a glass of wine, no longer in the mood for champagne. The restaurant was now fully occupied, lively conversations and laughter surrounding my island of solitude. At 8:15, my phone vibrated with a text message. My heart leaped with relief until I read the message from my mother. "Sorry, honey, something came up with Mason. You're not exactly a priority right now. Can we reschedule? Enjoy your work dinner." The words hit like a physical blow. Not exactly a priority. Work dinner. She had either forgotten or deliberately diminished the significance of the evening. And whatever Mason needed had, once again, taken precedence. I sat there, phone in hand, aware of a burning sensation behind my eyes. The server returned with my appetizer, noticing my expression. "Is everything all right, sir?" he asked quietly. "My guests won't be joining me," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'll be dining alone." He nodded discreetly. "I understand. Would you prefer to move to a smaller table?" The thought of being relocated, of having my abandonment witnessed by the entire restaurant, was unbearable. "No, thank you. I'll stay here." "Very good, sir. Would you like to see the dinner menu now?" I ordered the most expensive steak on the menu, a $120 dry-aged ribeye, along with truffle mashed potatoes and seasonal vegetables. I also ordered a $200 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. If I was going to pay the minimum charge for 6 people anyway, I might as well enjoy some luxury. As I ate my meal in solitude, I tried to focus on the exquisite food rather than the humiliation of being stood up by my own family. The steak was perfectly cooked, the wine exceptional. Under different circumstances, this would have been the finest dining experience of my life. Between the main course and dessert, I absently scrolled through my phone, hoping for some explanation from my family. Instead, what I found only deepened the wound. I wasn't particularly active on social media, but I maintained accounts to keep up with friends and extended family. That evening, as I scrolled through Instagram while waiting for my dessert to arrive, a post from my cousin Lindsay appeared at the top of my feed, posted just 20 minutes earlier. "Family night out for the real success story. #ProudCousin #family celebration." The photo showed my entire invited dinner party, glasses raised in a toast at the Wharf, a casual seafood restaurant at the marina about 20 minutes from where I sat alone. My mother and father were smiling broadly, positioned on either side of Mason, who was holding up keys with a plastic float attached. Aunt Susan was mid-toast, her expression animated with excitement. Lindsay's selfie angle captured everyone at the table, along with decorative balloons in the background. My hand trembled slightly as I swiped to see the next photo in the post. This one showed Mason standing proudly next to a brand new jet ski parked on a trailer in the restaurant parking lot. The caption read, "Mason's big purchase. Summer adventures ahead." I zoomed in on my family's faces, searching for any sign of guilt or discomfort that might suggest they remembered their commitment to me. There was none. Only genuine celebration and pride, the exact expressions I had hoped to see directed at my achievement. My stomach clenched as another notification appeared, this one from Mason himself. "Finally pulled the trigger on the Yamaha Waverunner GP 1800R SVHO. Thanks for the celebration dinner, fam. Hashtag living the dream." The timestamp on his post coincided almost exactly with my mother's text telling me I wasn't a priority. They hadn't forgotten my dinner. They had chosen to attend Mason's celebration instead, without even the courtesy of an honest explanation. As I continued scrolling in a daze of disbelief, more evidence appeared. A post from my father showing Mason on the jet ski with the caption, "My boy making power moves." A check-in from my mother at the wharf with, "Celebrating our son's success." The waiter approached with my dessert, a deconstructed chocolate masterpiece that under normal circumstances would have been a photographer's dream. I barely noticed as he placed it before me. "Is everything all right, sir?" he asked, noting my ashen complexion. "Could I get the check, please?" I managed to reply, "Of course. Would you like a box for your dessert?" I shook my head, no longer having any appetite. The waiter returned promptly with a leather folder containing the bill. I opened it and stared at the total, $1,980. The exact amount I had been paying monthly for my parents' mortgage for the past 3 years. The coincidence felt like a cosmic joke. As I signed the credit card slip, adding a generous tip for the server who had been so professional throughout my humiliation, a text message from Mason arrived. "Dude! Just bought a sick jet ski. Yamaha Waverunner GP 1800R SVHO, top of the line. Dad says I got a killer deal at $15,000. Gonna be an awesome summer." He had no idea I was supposed to see him tonight. No one had even told him about my dinner. I had been so thoroughly dismissed from their thoughts that my celebration dinner hadn't warranted mention. I left the Harrington with the distinct awareness that other diners were watching the man in the nice suit who had been abandoned by his entire party. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, a welcome relief from the stuffiness I suddenly felt in the restaurant. Driving home, I passed within a few blocks of my parents' neighborhood. For a moment, I considered stopping by the wharf, walking in on their celebration, and confronting them. What would they say if I simply appeared at their table? Would there be shame? Apologies? Or would they act as if nothing was wrong, expecting me to join in celebrating Mason's purchase as if my own achievement and their broken commitment meant nothing? I drove past the turn that would take me to the marina. Whatever confrontation might occur, I wasn't ready for it tonight. My thoughts were too jumbled, my emotions too raw. What I needed was clarity, and that would only come with distance and time to process what had happened. As I pulled into the parking lot of my apartment building, another text from my mother arrived. "How was your work dinner, honey? Did your colleagues enjoy it?" She had not only abandoned me but had also reframed the entire evening in her mind. It wasn't my celebration dinner they had missed. In her revisionist version, it was simply a work function with colleagues. This final dismissal of my achievement and their commitment crystallized something inside me. A decision was forming, still nebulous but gaining definition with each passing minute. I entered my apartment, hung up my expensive suit, and sat at my desk. For the first time in 3 years, I allowed myself to truly examine the relationship I had with my family, and the role I had accepted within it. The morning after the restaurant debacle, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. My one-bedroom apartment, which had always felt like a temporary stopping point on the way to homeownership, suddenly symbolized everything wrong with my relationship with my family. At 32, I was living in an $1,800 a month rental despite earning a salary that could comfortably support a mortgage on a nice condo. The furniture was functional but basic. The walls remained undecorated except for a single framed diploma. I had been living like a recent college graduate rather than a successful professional because $1,980 left my account automatically each month to pay for someone else's home. I made coffee and opened my laptop, logging into my banking portal. The transaction history told the story: 36 consecutive monthly transfers of $1,980 to my parents' mortgage company. I had set up the automatic payment to go directly to the lender rather than giving the money to my parents, wanting to ensure the home remained secure. A simple calculation revealed the total: $71,280 over 3 years. Enough for a substantial down payment on my own property. Enough to have taken several international vacations. Enough to have built a comfortable investment portfolio. Instead, it had maintained my parents' 4-bedroom colonial while they continued to live as if no financial crisis had ever occurred. What had they done with the money they saved by not paying their mortgage? The answer appeared in Mason's enthusiastic text about his new jet ski. My parents hadn't used their financial reprieve to build savings or pay down other debts. They had redirected those funds to maintaining their lifestyle and continuing to indulge Mason. I pulled out the folder where I kept all the mortgage payment confirmations, a habit I had maintained for tax purposes. Each month represented more than just a financial transaction. It represented a choice to prioritize my family's needs above my own. As I reviewed these records, my phone lit up with a notification. A text from my mother. "Hope you enjoyed your work dinner last night. Mason is so excited about his new jet ski. We're all going to the lake this weekend to try it out. Want to join us?" The casual invitation, with no mention of their missed commitment or my promotion, confirmed that in her mind, last night had been exactly what she wanted to believe: a work dinner of no particular importance that happened to coincide with Mason's real celebration. I didn't respond. Later that morning, I received another text, this one from Mason. "Check out these specs on the new Waverunner. 250 horsepower supercharged engine, 0 to 60 miles per hour in seconds. Cost a fortune but totally worth it." Attached was a photo of him sitting on the jet ski in our parents' driveway, giving a thumbs up. In the background, I could see my father's truck and mother's sedan, the vehicles I had helped ensure they didn't lose along with their house. Still, I didn't respond. By early afternoon, I had made a decision. I called my bank and spoke with a representative about canceling the automatic mortgage payment scheduled for the following week. "I'd like to stop an automatic payment," I explained. "Certainly, Mr. Mitchell. Is there an issue with the service?" "No. I've just decided to discontinue the payments." After confirming my identity and authority to make the change, the representative processed my request. "The automatic payment has been cancelled, Mr. Mitchell. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "Yes. I'd like to schedule an appointment with someone to discuss mortgage pre-approval for a home purchase." "Congratulations. I can connect you with our mortgage department right away." The call took less than 15 minutes but represented a seismic shift in my life trajectory. For the first time in 3 years, next month's mortgage payment for my parents' home would not be my responsibility. Next, I called Derek, my best friend since college and the only person who knew the full extent of my financial support to my family. "You did what?" he asked when I told him about canceling the payment. "It's about damn time." "You think so?" Despite my certainty, I valued his perspective. "Ryan, I've watched you put your life on hold for 3 years while they take advantage of you. Do they even know about your promotion?" "They knew about the dinner to celebrate it. They just chose to go to Mason's jet ski party instead." Derek's sharp intake of breath conveyed his disbelief. "A jet ski? While you're paying their mortgage? That's beyond entitled. I'm starting to see that now. It's more than the money, Ryan. It's the pattern." Remember when you couldn't make my wedding because your mom guilted you into attending Mason's regional baseball tournament? Or when they borrowed your car for Mason's job interviews while you took the bus to work for 2 weeks? They've been treating you like an ATM and a backup plan for years. Derek's examples triggered memories of other incidents I had normalized or excused. The time my parents asked me to co-sign Mason's car loan because his credit was poor. The temporary period when Mason lived in my apartment rent-free after one of his breakups. The family vacation I paid for as a gift. That somehow became centered around Mason's interests. I think I need to talk to a lawyer, I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. Absolutely. Document everything. Those mortgage payments, were they loans or gifts? They promised to pay me back, but there's nothing in writing. Get legal advice before they try to spin this. And Ryan, what are you going to tell them about stopping the payments? I considered this question carefully. A confrontation would lead to emotional manipulation, guilt trips, and promises they had no intention of keeping. I needed a cleaner break. I'm going to leave them a note, I decided, with all the payment records. That afternoon, I met with a lawyer who specialized in family financial matters. She reviewed my situation and provided clear advice about documenting the history of payments and any verbal agreements. Without written terms, these could be considered gifts rather than loans, she explained. But the consistent pattern in your parents' verbal promise to repay could support your position if this ever became a legal issue. I paid her consultation fee and left with a notarized statement documenting our discussion and my recollection of the original agreement with my parents. Back at my apartment, I prepared an envelope containing copies of all 36 mortgage payment confirmations. On top, I placed a simple note that read, "Let him pay it." 3 words that represented not just a financial decision, but an emotional boundary 3 years overdue. As evening approached, I drove to my parents' house, timing my arrival when I knew they would be out. Wednesday evenings they always attended a neighborhood dinner club, a social tradition they had maintained even during their financial hardship, somehow finding money for those outings while claiming inability to pay their mortgage. Pulling into their driveway, I immediately noticed Mason's new jet ski parked prominently beside my father's truck. The sight reinforced my resolve. I walked to the front door, envelope in hand, remembering countless times I had entered this home as the reliable son, the financial safety net, the overlooked supporter. As I was about to place the envelope in the mailbox, a voice called out from the neighboring yard. "Ryan! Good to see you." Calvin Peterson, my parents' neighbor for 20 years, waved from where he was watering his garden. "Hello, Mr. Peterson," I replied, envelope still in hand. "Missed you at the celebration last night. Your brother's quite excited about that new water toy." So the neighbors knew about Mason's celebration too. Everyone except me had been informed. "Yes, I had another commitment," I said vaguely. "Your folks are mighty proud of that boy. Always talking about him being their success story." Calvin continued, oblivious to the impact of his words. "Though your father did mention how grateful they are for your help with the house payments these past few years. Said it was a real blessing having such a successful son during the rough patch." I nodded, unable to form a response that wouldn't reveal my emotional state. Calvin returned to his gardening, and I slipped the envelope through the mail slot in the door. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter somehow, as if the envelope contained more than just paper. It held years of unmet expectations, overlooked achievements, and one-sided sacrifices. By the time I arrived home, my phone showed 3 missed calls from my father. They had returned early and found the envelope. I silenced my phone and went to bed, knowing tomorrow would bring a storm of messages and calls. I was right. By morning, my phone displayed 82 missed calls, 30 from my father, 41 from my mother, 8 from Mason, and 3 from Aunt Susan. The voicemails ranged from confused to panicked to angry. "Ryan, what is this envelope? Call me immediately." My father's first message, time-stamped 8:12 p.m. "Honey, there must be some mistake with the mortgage. Please call us back urgently." My mother at 8:20 p.m. What the hell, bro? Mom and Dad are freaking out about some mortgage thing. What did you do? Mason at 9:05 p.m. By midnight, the tone had shifted. Ryan Mitchell, you call us right now and explain yourself. We're your parents. You can't just abandon us like this. My mother's voice shrill with indignation. The final message, left at 3:17 a.m., was my father, his voice deflated and quiet. Ryan, please. We need to talk about this. The bank says the payment was stopped. We can't, just call us, son. I didn't call. Instead, I emailed my parents a simple message. I've been covering your mortgage for 3 years while putting my own life on hold. Last night, you chose to celebrate Mason's jet ski purchase instead of my promotion. I'm no longer available to pay for your house. The payment stopped effective immediately. Then I blocked their numbers, needing space to process my emotions without their inevitable attempts at manipulation. The break had begun. For 3 days, I maintained radio silence with my family while focusing on my new role at work. The blocked numbers prevented direct calls or texts, but emails continued to arrive, their subject lines growing increasingly desperate. Please read urgent family matter. We need to talk about the mortgage. Son, please respond emergency. I filtered these to a separate folder, preserving them as documentation without allowing them to disrupt my daily functioning. My assistant mentioned that my parents had called the office twice, but I had instructed her to take messages rather than put them through. On the 4th day after leaving the envelope, I received an email from my father that differed from the others. Ryan, I understand you're upset. We should have been at your dinner. Can we meet to talk like adults about this? Your mother is beside herself, and we need to discuss the mortgage situation rationally. Please, son. The tone was calmer, more reasoned, and for the first time acknowledged their absence at my celebration dinner. I decided it was time for a face-to-face conversation, but on my terms, not theirs. I replied, I can meet Saturday at 2 p.m. at Riverside Coffee downtown. Just you, not Mom or Mason. His response was immediate. Thank you. I'll be there. Saturday arrived, and I reached the coffee shop 15 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner that offered privacy without isolation. I ordered a black coffee and watched the door, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. My father arrived precisely at 2 p.m., looking older than I remembered from just a week earlier. The confident posture he typically maintained was diminished, his shoulders slightly hunched as he scanned the room and spotted me. He approached hesitantly, as if unsure of his welcome. Ryan, he said, stopping at my table. Thank you for meeting me. I gestured to the chair across from me. Would you like a coffee? No, thank you. I'm fine. He sat down, placing his hands flat on the table. Your mother wanted to come. I specified just you. I know. That's why she's waiting in the car. I glanced toward the window and saw my mother's silhouette in their sedan parked across the street. So much for meeting on my terms. What did you want to discuss? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Son, we received a foreclosure warning from the bank. Without that payment, we're in serious trouble. They won't work with us because of the previous near foreclosure. That's unfortunate. His eyes widened slightly at my response. Ryan, this is our home. Your childhood home. We could lose it. I've been preventing that for 3 years, I said evenly. $71,280 of my money has gone into maintaining your home while I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And we've been grateful, but this sudden change with no warning has put us in an impossible position. No warning? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Dad, when did I agree to pay your mortgage indefinitely? It was supposed to be temporary, until you got back on your feet. Things have been difficult. Construction hasn't fully recovered. Yet you had money for Mason's jet ski celebration. A $15,000 luxury purchase while I'm paying your essential bills. He had the decency to look ashamed. That was poor judgment on our part. It was a pattern. A pattern of taking my support for granted while prioritizing Mason's wants. That's not fair, Ryan. We love both our sons equally. Do you? I asked, leaning forward. Then why wasn't my promotion dinner important enough to attend? Why was Mason's recreational purchase more significant than my career achievement? We made a mistake. We should have been there for you. But you weren't. You haven't been, consistently, my entire life. And I've accepted that, made excuses for it, and continued to support you anyway. But I'm done. My father's expression shifted from contrition to calculation. What would it take to change your mind? We can acknowledge your promotion, have a proper celebration. This isn't about the dinner, Dad. It's about realizing my place in this family has always been as a resource, not as a son deserving equal consideration. That's not true. We're proud of you. When have you ever shown that? When have my accomplishments been celebrated the way Mason's are? When has my presence been prioritized over his needs or wants? He didn't respond immediately, perhaps searching his memory for examples that didn't exist. We love you, Ryan, he finally said, his voice softer. We may not have shown it the right way, but we do. Love without respect and consideration isn't enough. I've spent years accepting less than I deserve from this family relationship. That stops now. What are you saying? I'm saying the mortgage payments are over. Permanently. I'm buying my own place, investing in my own future. Whatever arrangements you make going forward need to exclude me as your financial safety net. We could lose everything, he repeated, a note of desperation entering his voice. You have options. Downsize to a home you can afford. Have Mason contribute to household expenses. Take a second job like I did to put myself through college. But whatever you do, it needs to be without my financial involvement. My father's expression hardened slightly. So you're just cutting us off? Your own family? I'm establishing boundaries that should have existed years ago. And I'm making choices that prioritize my well-being, the way you've always prioritized Mason's. This feels like punishment. It's not punishment, Dad. It's consequence. Natural consequence for treating one son as an endless resource while celebrating the other's every minor achievement. A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the ambient coffee shop noise. Finally, my father spoke again, his voice barely audible. I didn't realize how much we've hurt you. For the first time in our conversation, I sensed genuine realization rather than strategic contrition. It's not about hurt, I clarified. It's about patterns and choices. Yours and now mine. What do you want from us going forward? Space, initially. I need time without manipulation or guilt trips. After that, if we resume contact, it will be with clear boundaries and different expectations. And the mortgage? Is no longer my responsibility. My father nodded slowly, the reality of the situation finally appearing to sink in. I should go talk to your mother. She's waiting. Yes, you should. He stood, hesitated, then extended his hand across the table. I am proud of you, Ryan. For your promotion. For standing up for yourself. Even if this is difficult for us. I looked at his offered hand for a moment before accepting it briefly. Thank you for saying that. As he walked away, I remained seated, finishing my coffee and watching through the window as he crossed the street to where my mother waited. I saw him speaking to her in the car, her animated gestures visible even at this distance. Whatever he was telling her about our conversation clearly wasn't being well received. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. It's Mason. Had to use my work phone since you blocked my regular one. What the hell, man? Parents are talking about having to sell the house because of you. Real mature. I added this number to the blocked list without responding. Another buzz, this time an email from my mother. How could you do this to your family? After everything we've done for you. Your father is devastated after your meeting. Is this really the son we raised? I closed the email app without replying. The confrontation had gone exactly as expected, with initial attempts at manipulation, followed by appeals to family loyalty, and finally, when those tactics failed, accusations and guilt. The difference was that for the first time, I wasn't susceptible to these familiar strategies. Walking back to my car, I felt a mixture of emotions, regret for the pain my parents were experiencing, but also a strengthening resolve that my decision was necessary and long overdue. The confrontation had been difficult but clarifying. Whatever happened next would unfold without my financial involvement, allowing all of us to face the reality of our family dynamic without the cushion of my subsidy. As I drove away, my phone continued to buzz with messages I chose not to read. The storm I had anticipated was in full force, but for the first time, I wasn't standing in the rain. 1 week after my coffee shop meeting with my father, I sat in my new office at TechCore, reviewing project proposals from my team. The transition to development director had been surprisingly smooth, with most team members expressing enthusiasm about working under my leadership. My focus on the job had provided a welcome distraction from the family situation, allowing me to channel my energy productively. Alicia Chen, one of our senior developers and someone I'd worked alongside for years, knocked on my open door. "Got a minute?" she asked. "Sure, come in." She closed the door behind her and took a seat. "I wanted to check in. You've seemed distracted this week, despite doing a great job with the transition. Everything okay?" I hesitated, generally preferring to keep my personal life separate from work. But Alicia was more than just a colleague. She was someone I respected deeply and considered a friend. "Family stuff," I admitted. "Nothing that will affect my performance." "I didn't think it would," she assured me. "But sometimes it helps to talk about it." Something in her expression suggested personal understanding rather than mere politeness. I found myself explaining the situation in broad strokes: the years of financial support, the missed dinner, and my decision to stop the payments. Alicia listened without interruption, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she said, "I went through something similar with my sister a few years ago. Different circumstances, same dynamic. How did you handle it?" "Not as cleanly as you," she admitted with a small smile. "There were a lot of tearful phone calls and dramatic confrontations before I finally established boundaries. But eventually, we reached a new equilibrium. One that respects my needs as much as hers. That's encouraging to hear. It takes time. And they'll test your boundaries repeatedly before accepting them. Just stay consistent." Her advice resonated with what I was already experiencing. That morning, I had received an email from my father with the subject line, "Urgent, mortgage situation update." The body of the message was brief but impactful. "Son, the bank has officially begun foreclosure proceedings. They've given us 60 days to bring the account current or face eviction. We're exploring options but wanted you to be aware of the timeline. If you reconsider, even temporarily, please let us know immediately." I hadn't responded yet, recognizing the email for what it was: another attempt to transfer responsibility back to me through urgency and crisis. The 60-day timeline, however, was new information that warranted consideration in my overall approach. "Have they tried to contact you at work?" Alicia asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "A few times. My assistant has been running interference." "Good. Maintain those professional boundaries too." She stood to leave, then added, "And Ryan, remember that establishing healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary." After Alicia left, I received a notification from my realtor about a promising condo listing that matched my criteria. The timing felt significant, a tangible step toward my independent future coinciding with the ongoing separation from my family's financial needs. That evening, as I was reviewing the condo listing in detail, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Assuming it might be the realtor calling from a different line, I answered. "Ryan Mitchell speaking." "Ryan, it's Aunt Susan." I should have expected this. Aunt Susan had always been the family mediator, called in when situations became particularly tense. "Hello, Aunt Susan. Your parents are beside themselves, Ryan. Your mother can barely eat or sleep." No greeting, no preliminaries, straight to the guilt tactics. I remained silent, letting her continue. "I understand you're upset about missing your dinner," That was thoughtless of them. But cutting them off financially without warning, knowing they could lose their home? That seems extreme. It wasn't without warning, I responded calmly. The arrangement was always meant to be temporary until they regained financial stability. 3 years is beyond temporary. But to stop completely, all at once? What would you suggest? Another year? 2? At what point would it be acceptable for me to stop supporting their lifestyle? She paused before answering. I suppose I hadn't thought of it that way. No one has. That's the problem. Mason said you blocked his number? I needed space from the situation. He feels like you're punishing him for buying the jet ski. I couldn't help but laugh at this. The jet ski is a symptom, not the cause. Mason has never had to consider financial consequences because someone else always covers for him, usually me. He's younger, Ryan. He's still finding his way. He's 27, Aunt Susan. I was paying my own way and helping others at his age. Another pause, longer this time. Your parents mentioned you're looking at buying your own place. That's correct. I'm viewing some properties this weekend. So this is permanent then? The decision about the mortgage? Yes. I've subsidized their lifestyle at the expense of my own for too long. That chapter is closed. I see. Her tone shifted slightly, becoming less confrontational. Ryan, I want you to know that I did tell your parents they were wrong to miss your dinner. I was looking forward to celebrating your promotion. Thank you for saying that. And for what it's worth, I think Mason needs to start taking more responsibility. I've tried to tell your parents that too. This admission surprised me. Aunt Susan had always seemed fully aligned with my parents' perspective. I appreciate your honesty. Will you at least consider talking to your parents directly? Not about resuming payments, just about moving forward as a family? Eventually. Not yet. After ending the call with Aunt Susan, I felt a curious mix of vindication and sadness. Her intervention had been predictable, but her acknowledgement of the underlying issues was unexpected. Perhaps there were allies within the extended family I hadn't recognized. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I received a text from my cousin Lindsay, Aunt Susan's daughter. Hey Ryan. Can we meet for coffee sometime? Just us. I agreed, curious about what prompted this outreach. We met at a small cafe near my office the following afternoon. Lindsay looked uncomfortable as she stirred her latte. I owe you an apology, she began. The Instagram post from Mason's jet ski thing. I had no idea about your promotion dinner until afterward. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Gerald never mentioned it. I figured as much. Mason's been telling everyone you're having some kind of breakdown. That you suddenly cut off the family for no reason. That doesn't surprise me. I didn't believe it, she said firmly. You've always been the stable one. So I asked Mom what was really happening, and she told me about the mortgage payments. 3 years, Ryan? That's a lot. I shrugged. It seemed necessary at the time. Well, I want you to know not everyone in the family thinks you're in the wrong here. Mom and I both think you have every right to prioritize yourself. This unexpected support was touching. Thank you for telling me that. And congratulations on your promotion. That's a big deal. For the first time since the restaurant debacle, I felt genuinely celebrated by a family member. It is. I worked hard for it. We should do a proper dinner to celebrate. Just us cousins, no drama. I smiled. I'd like that. As the 3rd week after the confrontation began, the situation escalated dramatically. I was in a meeting when my assistant buzzed me. Mr. Mitchell, your father is in the reception area. He's quite insistent about seeing you. I excused myself from the meeting and went to the lobby, where my father stood looking distinctly out of place among the sleek, modern furnishings of TechCore's reception area. Dad, this isn't appropriate. You haven't responded to any communications for weeks. You left us no choice. Let's talk outside, I said, aware of the receptionist's discreet but interested observation. Once on the sidewalk outside the building, I turned to face him. What's so urgent that you needed to come to my workplace? He handed me an envelope. We're selling the house. These are the listing details. We thought you should know. I took the envelope but didn't open it. I'm sorry it came to this, but it's probably for the best. You need a place you can actually afford. Your mother is devastated. That house holds 30 years of memories. I understand that. But continuing to live beyond your means wasn't sustainable, with or without my help. We found a condo that might work. Smaller, but in a decent area. His tone was resigned rather than accusatory, a shift from our previous interaction. That sounds sensible. Mason's moving out too. Getting his own apartment. This was unexpected news. Good for him. He's mad as hell at you. Blames you for everything. I expected nothing less. My father looked at me directly, his expression more serious than I'd seen in years. Ryan, I've been doing a lot of thinking these past weeks. About you, about Mason, about how your mother and I have handled things. I waited, unsure where this was heading. You were right about the pattern. We did take you for granted while catering to Mason's every need. I don't think we realized how unbalanced things had become until you forced us to see it. This acknowledgement, delivered without qualifiers or excuses, caught me off guard. The mortgage situation was just the most obvious example, he continued. Looking back, there have been countless others. Your college, your achievements, your constant support that we barely acknowledged. Why are you telling me this now? Because selling the house has been clarifying. Painful, but clarifying. And I don't want to lose my relationship with my son on top of losing my home. For the first time in our confrontation, I sensed genuine regret rather than strategic remorse. I appreciate you saying that, Dad. I can't promise your mother feels the same way yet. She's still processing everything. And Mason, well, he has some growing up to do. But I wanted you to know that at least one of us sees the situation more clearly now. As we stood there on the sidewalk outside my office building, something shifted in our relationship. Not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. I should let you get back to work, he said finally. But Ryan, when you're ready, I hope we can start rebuilding. On different terms. I'd like that eventually. As my father walked away, I felt the weight of the past 3 weeks, of the past 3 years, begin to lift slightly. The confrontation had been necessary, painful but ultimately transformative. Whatever came next would be built on more honest ground. 3 months after the night I sat alone at the Harrington restaurant, I stood in the living room of my newly purchased condo, surveying the space that represented my independence and priority shift. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the Boston skyline, hardwood floors gleamed under recessed lighting, and the 2-bedroom layout provided both living space and a dedicated home office. The mortgage payment was substantial but comfortably within my development director salary. More importantly, it was an investment in my future rather than a subsidy for someone else's past. My phone chimed with a text message from Alicia. How's moving day going? Need any help unpacking? Our friendship had deepened in the months following my family confrontation, evolving into a relationship that brought unexpected joy and support during a challenging time. Almost done with the essentials, I replied. Just in time for the housewarming tomorrow. The housewarming party had been Alicia's suggestion, a way to properly celebrate both my promotion and my new home. The guest list was small but meaningful, close friends, select colleagues, and somewhat surprisingly, a few family members. My cousin Lindsay had been the first to receive an invitation, followed by Aunt Susan. After much consideration, I had extended invitations to my parents as well, though I remained uncertain whether they would attend. Mason had not been invited, a boundary that felt necessary for my well-being. According to Lindsay, he had indeed moved into his own apartment but continued to struggle financially, especially after taking on payments for his jet ski. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I took no pleasure in his difficulties. My parents had sold their house the previous month, downsizing to a 2-bedroom condominium in a retirement community about 30 minutes outside Boston. The change had been difficult for them, particularly my mother, but the practical benefits were undeniable. The smaller space came with lower utilities, reduced maintenance, and most importantly, a mortgage they could afford on their own. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Opening the door, I found my father standing in the hallway, looking somewhat hesitant. "I know I'm a day early for the housewarming," he said, "but I wanted to bring this by." He held out a gift bag. "Come in," I offered, stepping aside. He entered cautiously, eyes widening as he took in the space. "This is really something, Ryan. You've done well for yourself." "Thank you. Would you like a tour?" I showed him around the condo, noting the careful attention he paid to each room, each feature. There was pride in his expression that felt new and genuine. "Coffee?" I offered when we returned to the living room. "That would be nice." While I prepared the coffee, he remained standing, seemingly unsure of his place in this new territory. "You can sit down, Dad." He settled onto the sofa, placing the gift bag on the coffee table. "Your mother sends her regards. She's still working through things, but she wanted you to have this." I brought the coffee and sat across from him, reaching for the bag. Inside was a framed photograph I hadn't seen in years, me at my college graduation, standing between my parents, all of us smiling. "We found it while packing," he explained. "She thought it should be here, in your new home." The gesture, small but meaningful, suggested a tentative step toward reconciliation. "Thank her for me. Will you come for dinner sometime? At the new place? When you're ready, of course. I'd like that eventually. We still have things to work through." He nodded, understanding the qualification. "Mason's struggling," he said after a moment. "With the apartment, the jet ski payments." He asked to move back in with us. "What did you tell him?" "That he needs to figure it out on his own. That we can't solve his problems anymore." My father looked down at his coffee. It wasn't an easy conversation. "I imagine not. He blamed you, of course. Said none of this would be happening if you hadn't abandoned the family." "That's predictable." What wasn't predictable was your mother's response. She told him it wasn't your responsibility to support any of us, that he needs to start taking accountability for his choices. My father glanced up, meeting my eyes. "That's new." The information surprised me. My mother had been the most resistant to the change dynamic, the most insistent on maintaining the status quo that prioritized Mason's needs. "That is new," I agreed. "The past few months have been." He paused, searching for the right word. "Educational. Painful, but educational." Selling the house, downsizing, watching Mason struggle with basic adult responsibilities, reflecting on how we got here. And where did you get? To the realization that we did both our sons a disservice. You, by taking your support for granted and failing to acknowledge your achievements. And Mason, by sheltering him from consequences and responsibility. This level of self-awareness from my father was unprecedented. It suggested a depth of reflection I hadn't expected. "I appreciate your honesty. I can't change the past, Ryan. But I can acknowledge it. And I can try to do better going forward." The conversation continued as we finished our coffee, touching on my new position at work, my father's adjustment to retirement community living, and tentative plans for a family dinner in the coming weeks. When he left, there was a lightness between us that hadn't existed in years, perhaps ever. The following evening, my housewarming party filled the new condo with conversation and laughter. Colleagues mingled with friends, Lindsay and Aunt Susan chatted with Alicia, and to my surprise, both my parents attended, bringing a houseplant and a bottle of wine. My mother's approach was more reserved than my father's had been, her interaction with me polite but cautious. The emotional wounds were still fresh for her, the adjustment to our new relationship more challenging. Still, her presence represented willingness to move forward, to accept the change dynamic even if she didn't fully embrace it yet. As the evening progressed, I found myself on the balcony with Aunt Susan, enjoying a moment of quiet away from the party. "Your mother's trying," she said, nodding toward where my mother stood talking with Alicia. "This isn't easy for her." I know. She told me last week that she started seeing a therapist to work through her feelings about the house, about the situation with you and Mason. This news was unexpected. My mother had always dismissed therapy as unnecessary, preferring to handle emotional challenges through stoic denial. That's good to hear. Your standing up for yourself triggered a lot of changes, Ryan. Difficult ones, but necessary. Aunt Susan placed her hand on my arm. I'm proud of you. Not just for your professional success, but for having the courage to break an unhealthy pattern. Her words touched me deeply. The validation from a family member, the acknowledgement of both my achievement and my difficult decision, represented exactly what I had been seeking that night at the Harrington. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, my parents approached me near the door. Thank you for including us, my father said. It was good to see where you're living now. My mother added, her tone sincere if still somewhat formal. I'm glad you came. We'd like to have you over for dinner next month, she continued. Just family. To properly celebrate your promotion. The offer represented a significant shift, an acknowledgement of what they had missed, and an attempt to make amends. I'd like that, I replied. After they left, Alicia helped me clean up, both of us reflecting on the evening. That went better than expected, she observed, gathering empty glasses. It did. There's still tension, but it's progress. Healing takes time. The important thing is that the dynamic has changed. And it had. The most profound change wasn't in my living situation, though the new condo represented tangible progress. It wasn't even in my parents' acknowledgement of past mistakes, though that represented emotional growth I hadn't thought possible. The most significant change was within me. I had shifted from accepting less than I deserved to requiring respect and consideration. From enabling unhealthy patterns to establishing necessary boundaries. From putting everyone else's needs first to recognizing the legitimacy of my own. Standing in my new home, surrounded by evidence of my success and the beginning of healthier relationships, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The confrontation had been necessary, the aftermath challenging, but the resolution was worth every difficult moment. The family dynamic would never be perfect. My mother would likely always feel closer to Mason, my father would sometimes fall back into old patterns, and my brother might never fully accept his role in the situation. But perfect wasn't the goal. Healthier was. More balanced was. And we were making progress toward both. What have you done to establish healthy boundaries in your life? Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to prioritize your own well-being? Drop a comment below sharing your experience, and if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most necessary growth.